Hector Bravo, unhinged. Chaos is now in session.
Welcome back to our channel, Warriors. We are still growing. Today, another banger for you guys. Man, I went out and I found me an OG veterano, man, from the Imperial Valley. But on the real, this man right here was a United States Marine, former ICE agent. Dude's been around the block, man, has a lot of knowledge and wisdom to share with us. We're going to dive into his story and we're going to find out how ultimately he retired from the ICE department. What up, dude?
Hey, what's up?
How was your drive up here, man, from Imperial Valley?
Yeah, it was about 2 hours, no traffic. It was good.
So, where were you born and raised, dude?
I was born in Mexico, in Sonora, and came over here when I was about 2 years old.
His name's Caesar, by the way, if I failed to mention that.
Yeah.
Sonora, where's that at? Hey, guys, consider becoming a patron where you will get first exclusive dibs on the video before it airs to the public, and you'll get to ask the guests special questions that you have in mind. So that's also another way to support the channel. Thank you, guys. Appreciate all of you. Keep pushing forward. Make sure you hit that link in the description below.
Probably, what? Maybe 6 hours east of Mexicali.
East. Okay. Damn, I didn't even know that. Is it?
So it's across Nogales, somewhere
Okay.
over there, by Puerto Peñasco.
Okay.
Somewhere in that area.
And you moved over at 2 years old, and then were you raised?
From 2, I believe, well, this is from what I remember from the family. I think we went to Brawley, California for like a year. And then from there, we went to Fresno, because I went to kindergarten in Fresno.
You did?
Yeah. So I went to, but Friant, it was called Friant. It was a town away, like 20 miles away from Fresno.
Was your family working in the fields up there?
Yeah, he was always working agriculture.
Your dad was?
Yeah, so I think it was the almonds. Back in that place, it was the almond trees. So I went to kindergarten there, and then I remember, well, because I didn't speak English, and at that school there was no Mexicans, and because it was not Fresno, it was a little town by the dams.
Well, were there white people?
Yeah, well, I don't remember, but I remember I learned English like within 4 months, because I remember my parents used to tell me I used to get home mad because I didn't understand anybody. Right. And then, but it was a good thing because I learned it within a few months.
Cool.
Instead of just being in where the Mexicans are either going to be speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
Especially the low income. So it's kind of good that, that happened. And then from there, I think we moved to Fresno. And then from there, I think we went to the projects. We moved to the projects during some time. And then so we lived in the projects for a while in Fresno. And I remember back then, that's when I got exposed, like the first time that I remember violence, because I remember I used to see back then it was mostly the blacks.
What year time frame was this?
You know what I remember? In Fresno, I think I must have been maybe 6 or 7.
But what was the years, give or take?
In the 70s.
70s?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, because I was born in 67, so 72, kindergarten, 73 maybe?
Yeah.
And then, so we lived in the projects, a lot of violence, a lot of getting chased by the black kids. I remember running home, getting chased, because I hardly know not that many Mexicans at that time.
God damn.
In the projects.
Yeah.
And I remember, little things like that.
Right.
And then from there, I don't know, I forgot, because I remember I went to elementary school in Brawley. So we came to Brawley maybe 8, 9 years old.
And did you feel a little bit better or more comfortable that you were around more Mexicans?
I don't think, I don't remember feeling any way.
Okay.
It was all, I don't remember if there was, it was just another place. Okay, we went to another place. And so I went to Oakley. And then from there I went to Phil Swing. And it was during a time when they were doing some kind of, they moved, all the first, second, third graders had to go to one school. 4th, 5th, and 6th went to the other school.
Yeah.
Something was going on during that time with the politics and all that. And so I went to those schools. And then from there we left, maybe 5th grade, I think. And then we went to this place called Olancha over by Victorville. But you head up.
Damn, dude, you guys were on the move.
Yeah. So we went to Olancha. It's over by Lone Pine, I think Lone Pine. Independence by the Mammoth Mountains. So I lived in this little place that had like 100 population. And then that place had the school. It was just 2 rooms. One was the first, second, third grade, and the other one was the fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. and then so the first row was first grade, second row was second grade, third grade, and then the 2 teachers were married. And then from there we used to go on Fridays hiking up the mountain because the mountain was right there by the school. So I remember that, and then I got to go to the junior high, but it was in the next town over.
Was that a little bigger?
I think Lone Pine was the name of that. Yeah, it was a little bigger, probably the size of Brawley, I think, if I remember right.
Okay.
And then so they had the high school there, so we get bused. It was about a 25-minute ride, or 25 miles. So every morning we would drive there to the next town over. And so I went there I think we were there for a year, but then my mom had a stroke. So she had the stroke, and then we had to leave because she couldn't be in the altitude. So then we came back to Brawley. So I went to Brawley. I was there junior high, 7th grade. Oh, at the end of 7th grade, we came to Brawley. And then from there, I was in 7th grade. And then they told me, okay, you know what, how old are you? Okay, you're a little too old to be in 7th grade. So they give me some kind of quiz or something, and they put me in 8th grade.
Damn.
So in Barbara Worth and Brawley, I only did 2 months of 8th grade. So I don't know how that worked, but I did 2 months of 8th grade, and then I graduated 8th grade, and then I went to Brawley High School.
Okay.
So I don't know how, but the difference in school.
Right.
And over there, I was going to flunk up they were going to hold me back in Lone Pine. And then over here, they moved me up.
It's Brawley for you, man.
Yeah, so they moved me up. I don't know if they had DEI back then or.
I don't know.
So who knows?
Homie hookup.
Yeah, so I got, so I only did 2 months of 8th grade, went to high school. And then from there, I was there 9th, 10th grade, half of 10th grade. And then I went to Calexico. So it was just where my parents were going. I was.
So you're the definition of the American dream, dude. You were born in Mexico, came over here. Mm-hmm. At what point did you get the idea to serve your country? And was the United States Marine Corps your first option?
So it was nothing about serving my country at that time.
What was it about?
It was I was just a little, and then the thing is, because I was, I was moving around. I was a real shy kid.
Okay.
Like extremely shy. So I would, and I don't know, it's because I was moving around so much, didn't really make a connection with people. So by the time I remember in high school, I don't think I had any friends. I would go when I go home, and then everybody in the neighborhood, because it was a poor neighborhood, and then it was a lot of Mexicali people that were living in the place where I lived. And then, so right there, I was socialized there. But once I got like to the high school, like nobody know. And then it was the same thing in Calexico, but from Calexico we would go to Mexicali on the weekends where my cousins lived. So I met a bunch of people there. Those were actually the last group of people that I knew that were my friends, because I still see them once in a while. And there were the people there that live in Mexicali. And then pretty much everybody else that I remember from Brawley, like they they all ended up in trouble. But the military, no, I had it. The only thing is, for some reason, I've always had it. I remember from when I was a kid, I want to be a highway patrol. I don't know, because back then they had a show called Chips.
Right. Eric Estrada.
Uh-huh. So I don't know, it was because of that. Because I remember I wrote an essay in elementary school in Fresno. What do you want to do when you grow up? And I wrote highway patrol. And so that was in my head since I was little. I don't know, maybe because of that show. And then, so by the time, I went through, all the way to high school, senior, or 11th grade, I was like, you know what, the Border Patrol came to do a little presentation. And I was like, you know what, I want to do that. I see them in the uniform and stuff.
Yeah.
And then, so I was like, you know what, I want to go Border Patrol. And that was just in my head. And then, when the time came, so then I got out of there. So then I went to because I was not even close to being the military type, so I don't know what. And then I was very quiet, so I don't know what actually got me to make these moves or to think like that. And then I graduated. I went to the recruiter's office, and then I went the Marine Corps. They were closed, or they were out to lunch or something. No, I was gonna go Army. I didn't know anything about the Marine Corps. I was gonna go Army because I said, "Oh, I'll go Army."
Yeah.
And then so I went to the Army. They were out to lunch, so I went into the Marine Corps recruiter. I said, "Hey, do you know what time they come back?" They go, "Come on in. Maybe we could help you out." But at that time, I thought, no, I can't get into Marine Corps. I thought the Marine Corps was too hard or something special.
It is something special, bro.
And
But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. So at that time, I was like, I didn't even think about the Marine Corps. I thought I was like, no, I can't get into the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And then so I go Army. Army seems like, and then so it's just, okay, they called me in. They go, take this test right here. So I took it. And they go, well, what do you think would you want to be? I go, military police. They go, well, you know what? Your score's not high enough, but we got security forces. And then I go, okay, And then you go, you're going to be guarding the base, whatever. And then I go, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And so I did that. I signed up, but I didn't know security forces was just for a year. It was you were a grunt. You were in the 0311.
So you signed in as a 0311?
Yeah, but I guess your first duty station was going to be security forces, which was a security for a base.
And then after that, it's in the contract. The last 3 years, you're going to be a grunt?
Well, yeah, and then you go to Camp Pendleton. You go back to the fleet, back to the regular, fleet. And at that time, I didn't know, though.
Right.
So I thought, okay, I went to boot camp. And then
Where'd you go to boot camp at?
In San Diego.
How was that experience, dude? Because I know you said you were shy and more quiet. How was that experience?
Well, I started from the most bottom as you can. I think I don't know if the recruiters cheated. They had to do at least 3 pull-ups. And then maybe I did 2.5.
Right.
And then, because even the doctor that I was the family doctor before I left, he did a checkup on me. And then he was shocked that I was going to the military. He goes, are you sure you're going to make it? Because I think during that time I wasn't even eating. And then I must have been going through something. I don't remember. But I remember I wasn't eating. I would just pick up my food. And then I must have just been nervous because I was an adult now.
Right.
And I had to figure something out. And then so when I got to boot camp, and then I didn't go, when you go, you could go with your recruiter and they try to prep you a little bit. I didn't show up to all because my parents moved to Mexicali in my last 2 months before I graduated.
So where were you staying at?
In Mexicali, but I would go back and forth. So I would take a bus in Mexicali, where we were at, cross the border in my last 2 months. And then, so when I went...
Would you take a bus from the valley to here? Or would
no, from Calexico, I would walk all the way to the border, cross, take the bus to the neighborhood where I was at, where my parents were at, and then do that for the last 2 months. Cross. A lot of kids still do that right now.
Okay.
And then there's a lot of people from Mexicali that go to school. And so then I did that. And then after that, I was like having second thoughts about joining the military. I was kind of chickening out.
How old were you when you enlisted?
18.
Okay, so you were a youngster.
So I was having second thoughts. And then I don't know how the recruiter actually went over there and he found me. So
where?
In Mexicali.
No way, dude.
So my parents must have, because after I was changing my mind. I was like chickening out. And then my parents, I guess they must have left some kind of address or something, maybe.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even go to graduation. My parents went and picked up my my diploma. I didn't go there like the last week or something. I don't remember. It's all like just...
A blur?
Yeah, it's a blur. So my parents went to pick up my diploma. And then the recruiter, I guess they must have left an address there or something at that school. Because the recruiter went and found he's a Puerto Rican guy, remember?
Okay.
I don't know if his last name was Garcia or Gonzalez. And that's the first time I ever met a Puerto Rican guy. I didn't. So he went and he found me, which was a good thing because I don't think I was going to show up no more. And then, so then I went, next thing you know, I went to MEPS. They checked me out. I had an ingrown toenail because I was supposed to leave in September. I had an ingrown toenail infected. They rejected me. So I went to get the toenail pulled out. Took like 2 months to heal. And in December, I went in December 9th or 10th. I went in Greyhound. They picked me up at Greyhound in San Diego on Front Street, took me to boot camp. And then from there, because I didn't know what to expect. Like, I didn't know anything. Like,
What about any war movies? Full Metal Jacket?
No, I wasn't even, because it wasn't about that I wanted to go to
Correct.
the military. This is what I need to do because this is what I want to do. So to get there, I need to go here because I'm not going to go to school. I barely made it out of the regular school.
Right.
I wasn't going to go to college. I wasn't that type. I didn't like school. And so I knew, okay, well, I don't know. To this day, I cannot explain why I had that sense of what I needed to do.
Oh, I get it, bro. I get it. You had a goal, and then you saw which steps you had to take
Like
to
to
reach
this
that
day,
goal.
I still feel like I've always been guided by something spiritual, right?
That's good, dude.
And then like to this day, I feel, because a lot of times I have ignored, like I still feel like I'm being guided by certain things. Like right here, what I'm doing, I would never ever. I hate cameras.
I was just about to tell you, there's a reason why you're here today, man.
Yeah. So I've always, and then I could look back in certain things where I had this feeling again, and I would ignore it. And then so you can tell that, you know what, there's a spiritual side of us that we ignore. You know, especially now with social is getting worse.
We'll get to that.
And so I went. Okay, and then when I got off the van. I went in a van. Usually you see people, they come on a bus, they get picked up at the airports, and then they get on the. So I went in a van and then started getting yelled at. I didn't know what to think because I didn't know. So then they start yelling and this and that. And then the thing is, even though I was a quiet kid, but I was still grew up around the little gangsters and the little, we didn't like that. Even though I wasn't no gang or nothing like that, but I still feel like, hey, who are these people,
You probably had a sense of like etiquette, and people should not be yelling at somebody. As maybe disrespect or something.
Yeah, it felt like, what are they? And then because I still had that little, because I grew up the whole time in the hood, I guess you would call it.
Right.
And so then we went in. That was receiving, and then from there they take you, get shaved, and and then they yell at you, take everything out of your pockets. It's almost like if you were going into jail, like what the.
Correct.
Take everything in your pockets, this and that, and look straight. Don't. So the whole typical military stuff. So from there, okay, we 3 days later we were introduced to the drill instructors, and then from there, I guess, because I remember one day they go, okay, we got an individual doesn't want to participate. Something. I think I gave him attitude because I still wasn't getting the hint. This is the way it is. This is this boot camp. They're not yelling at you, but I think I took it personal. Like, who are these people?
Right.
And then so for a day, I remember they moved me to the end by myself, to the end of the squad bay of the barracks. And then I was by myself. And I guess from there, I must have, finally caught on to, okay, no, this is the way it is. You need to go through this.
Were they giving you special treatment? Meaning,
no,
were they fixated on you?
I think they knew, well, yeah, because I brought attention to them. Like they say, don't.
So you brought attention to yourself.
Yeah.
And and they let you know.
Yeah. And then,
were they rude about it?
Well, yeah. And then after that, I finally clicked in. You know what? No, this is the way it is. This is, you're here. This is boot camp. This is the program. You got to go through it. And then so from there, I guess. So I must have, okay. I got into the routine of the way things were. And then so I went through the whole boot camp experience. And then getting yelled at because I brought a lot of attention to him because...
Back then, were they putting hands on people?
Yeah. So I got hit at least from what I remember, I got hit in the chest twice. But the thing is, because I went in there, remember, I wasn't in shape. I was real weak. And then so I brought a lot of attention to him.
Correct.
Because I was... because I'm surprised I made it, actually.
Real quick, before we started talking, I wanted you to expand on the different generations that have evolved. Do you feel that type of behavior is beneficial to somebody's growth?
Like me, I have no problems with it.
Correct.
What I went through, I think the type of person I was actually did me good.
Correct.
So it was good for me. But I was that made me grow up. That made me. So I have no complaints.
Correct.
And then I haven't even got to the part where I went to my first duty station.
Oh, let it go, bro. Let's hear it.
So you went through that. Okay, I went. And then and I would have to get up at night too to study because they think I wasn't gonna pass. Because you have to do your knowledge, you have to remember all these things, all these tactics and all this. And then so I was getting yelled at more than normal, and then I was getting up at night to do extra studying because they're like, this guy ain't gonna make it. And then because in school I don't remember learning anything in school because I would move around so much. I do not remember. I don't know how I made it out of school. And I think what helped me is I would get these books like test taking for dummies, and I think the little things in there has helped me pass these tests to keep getting through where I was going. And then I took typing the last 2 years in high school, and right there you do a lot of writing. So I think that's what actually helped me, be able to write a little bit, and that's what helped me get through. Because of the rest, I don't think I learned anything that I remember because I didn't like being there.
Right.
And so I graduated boot camp, and then I went to infantry training school. It was called ITS back then. Now it's called SOI, School of Infantry.
In Camp Pendleton?
Yeah. So I went to ITS, Infantry Training School, and then so I got through that. And then I remember back then they were looking for 20 volunteers to go to Cuba. Back then it was Cuba, and I forgot what other duty station were the worst duty stations you could have. There was no combat or anything going on at that time. So the worst duty stations you could have was Cuba, and there was another one I forgot because of the isolation. And then so I remember I was like kind of joking around with people like, oh, you're gonna go to Cuba, you're gonna go to Cuba. And that day, because they didn't have enough volunteers, so they just picked people. So they started reading off the names, the 20 names, and they read my name. And I was just like, Cuba, like. And then so I was the one picked to go to Cuba. And then back then you had to do also they had to do like a suitability, like a background. Because because of that base, you needed a certain classification.
Yeah.
So I went to, so they did that. So that was the first time I was actually classified, with
clearance.
It wasn't secret. It was one below that. So I got picked, and then graduation of infantry training school. My parents showed up to graduation about 2-3 hours. Got to see him for about an hour. After it was over, it started like at 8 a.m. By noon, I was on the bus straight to the airport.
No way, dude.
So I went to straight to the airport. First time flying. I had my two bag, my seat bag, another duffel bag, and my big, because back then I would carry this big, in the 80s, big old radio.
Okay.
And then I was really into my radios, so I took that thing with me. So I had a radio, big old seat bag, another bag.
Like a boombox type of deal?
Yeah, it was a big old boombox. I took it with me. So I go to the airport, and then we fly, I think it was Virginia or somewhere. And then from there, they were telling us, you know what, when you get to Cuba, make sure you put your head down when you get off the plane, because they were messing with us. They go, you might get shot at. So, when we land, you're going to go into you're going to duck your head or whatever. And they're already messing with you before you even got there. So I got to Cuba. That's the first time I ever felt humidity, because in the valley,
right,
it was dry. So that's the first time, like, I got off the plane and like, whoa, like, humidity. And then so from there we went. There was two sides of the base, windward and leeward. I was on leeward. You had to take like a ferry across the bay, and then you get to the leeward side. And then from there, that's when at that boot camp I don't think boot camp was anything compared to the receiving I got at.
No way, man.
Yeah. And then because at that time you had like the mentality I had. Now that I think about it, like when you think about discipline, right? The military,
right?
To me, that was not discipline. That was not. It was like as soon as we got there, the guy started like everybody was there. They started like messing with you, yelling at you, doing this and that. I guess kind of like almost going like to a prison.
Like hazing.
Yeah. And then I remember that night they they flipped it, they went into the rooms because all the new guys, we didn't go out nowhere. There was 20 of us. So we were in our bunks. And then like at midnight, they would come, I guess they came all drunk from the E-Club.
Yeah.
And then they flipped our bunks over and then, leather on their head. It was chaos for the first 3 months until those guys started leaving. And then after that, after we started becoming my group, we started becoming the seniors. When the other people started coming in, we didn't do any of that.
You didn't do any of that?
So then things started changing.
Okay.
So the environment changed because we didn't do that to nobody.
Right.
We were treating them like even though the military is expected, that kind of stuff is expected. But I guess, I don't know if it was just the generation of the guys over there, maybe late 70s, early 80s, compared to the mid 80s, late 80s.
Were they Vietnam veterans or no?
I don't know.
You mentioned like that incident from the movie A Few Good Men.
Mm-hmm.
You said that incident happened while you were on.
Yeah, I don't know if
Guantanamo?
anybody died because it happened on the windward side, and it happened like my last couple months that I was there. We heard about some incident, but from what I remember, I think it was just like a blanket party that somebody got, and I guess they got hurt pretty bad.
Yeah.
And that's all I knew. And I didn't know. And then I know there was a change of command because you have to do you have to get information. It's like a ceremony.
Right.
Change commands. So the sergeant major and the colonel traveled together, and they got relieved of their duties for whatever. I think it was because of that issue. And so
you also mentioned to me before that at that time they held leadership accountable.
Yeah, that's because when I see all this late stuff with Afghanistan and all that,
Correct.
like what happened, like right there for this incident, the sergeant major and the colonel, they're responsible. There's no excuses.
Right. And then the failed withdrawal of Afghanistan where 13 service members died.
Yeah, when I seen that. And then that's the one I still had in my mind too was the other one that happened before that. At the embassy.
Which one?
Uh,
Benghazi.
yeah, that one is
Right.
It started building me hate, distaste for even though I was working already for the government. I haven't got to that part.
We'll get to that. So yeah, no, we're building the scene, man.
Mm-hmm.
You're a fucking grunt in Guantanamo, man. Now you're the seniors.
Yeah.
And what would your job duties consist of right there?
Well, it was fence line duty, and because right there you're supposed to, because I guess the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Okay.
I guess they're not allowed to bring because they had the missiles there and then so from there, they're not allowed to have any tanks, I believe, any MiGs, any just small arms. So right there, they had all their bases. We keep an eye on their base. They were behind a hill, so you couldn't really see their base, but you could see the ingoing, outgoing. So we were locked down. We have a logbook, and you logged down on your post. You had a certain sector, and you were logged. Okay, this came in, this went out. This came in, this went out.
Did you have binoculars?
Yeah, they were called big eyes. It was this big old thing, like on a stand. These big old things they usually have on ships.
Right.
On the Navy, they were called big eyes. So you could see right there.
Were they staring back at you?
Yeah, sometimes we wave and they wave back. And it was the same thing because sometimes we would take our flat jacket and our gear, our helmet off and stuff and relax. And they would do the same thing. And then when they see somebody come check the post, like the lieutenants or whoever, and then everybody throw their stuff back on.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny to see them. Then they did the same thing. It was like the same thing. And so we would kind of like just go like that all the way back. And then you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think about 8 posts. One was right on the ocean. You would keep track of the ship movement. And then the other one, okay, there was a military base there. Another one, 3. It was about 6 bays. There was one that was 18 miles out.
18 miles out?
Yeah, that one was right across from it was called Camarena City.
What was it, a guard tower?
Yeah, they're all towers.
And was it one person or 2 people in that tower?
No, just one.
And what if you got picked to go to the 18-mile out one? Is it boring?
Not really, not that one, because you get to see the people there.
Yeah.
You see the movement, people like the kids going to school, the people going to work. So it was kind of like,
okay,
that one was interesting. The one before that.
Which one was the worst tower? Like, what are you not staring at anything?
I think number 13, it was right by, you keep track, there was like a little river that ran through the base and into Cuba. And I think that if I remember right, that's all you were just watching the little river there. And then the other ones where you were watching because you had to keep track of what went in, what went out.
Yeah.
In the
Okay.
logbook.
Cool.
And then the one at the sea, that one's like, and then so you do, I don't remember right, but I think you would do a week guard duty or fence line duty, and then the next week you would do infantry stuff, training, whatever the infantry does. We'll go out there and train. Or
What did you prefer doing, the infantry training or the guard duty?
I think just it didn't matter. The whole just being there isolated.
It sucked?
Yeah,
Okay.
and just being there like.
How was the chow?
The chow was just regular chow. I didn't, as a matter of fact, I think, I don't remember. I must have been consuming about 1,000. Everybody was like, well, most people, there was very few people that liked being there because it was isolated. It was like horrible. And from what I remember, most people were like, man, I can't wait to get out of here. And then, so I remember, and then especially me, because, you know, I went to boot camp, went to infantry training school, and then straight to the bus, and then over there, 18 years old. So I remember I wasn't, because I remember I wasn't hardly eating. I was eating very little the whole time I was there. And then so I lost a lot of weight. And so, but towards the end, actually, you get used to it. And at the end, I was like, because you could extend for a year. And I was this close, I was going to extend because I was already used to it. You get used to whatever environment you're in.
Right.
And
how long was your tour there?
a year.
1 whole year there, man?
And I didn't go nowhere. I was just there the whole
So
time.
was that part of that 1 year, was that where your recruiters were talking about that was going to be your 1 year of security forces?
But they didn't know where I was there because
Okay.
security forces was, what was it? Where else? Diego Garcia. It wasn't embassy duty. Embassy duty is
Okay.
different. But it was similar. You do security for the base.
So then after that, you have 3 years remaining on your contract.
But it's all overseas. I think Okinawa too was security forces.
And then you came back stateside after that?
Yeah, after that I came back, got 30 days, they called it basket leave, free leave. So at that time my parents were still in Mexicali. So I went to Mexicali, and that's where I had the last friends that I had were from Mexicali.
Okay.
So I went there, back to the neighborhood there, and I remember for 3 days, I was in Cuba for a year. It felt like I was there for 10 years. Like I felt when I got back to well, not the States. Well, technically the
Yeah,
States,
the
right there on the
States.
border. I felt like things had changed.
Right.
Like kind of like when the prisoners get out of, but they're there for years, but they get that same feeling when they get out into society, like, you know. And I felt like I was gone for longer than a year. So when I got back, I think I was in my house for 3 days. Like I didn't want to. I was like paranoid.
Right.
I didn't want to go out. And then finally, the kids there from the neighborhood, they started coming over, and then eventually I came out. Okay, and then I got back in. You know, okay, I'm back. So then from there, after 30 days, I went to my duty station in Camp Pendleton. But the people or the unit was out. It was 3-7, and the unit was out, and they were finishing up their cold weather training up north, Fort Ord or Hunter Liggett. Their cold weather training. So they said, you know what, it makes no sense to take you all the way over there. You're gonna hang out here, just kind of not doing nothing. Go help the maintenance, or I forgot
Yeah.
what it was. So I was hanging out there for, I don't know if it was 2 months, a month. And then they came back, but this was a whole different. It wasn't like my receiving at Guantanamo. This was like just normal.
It was normal.
People were friendly. You know, by this time I was a PFC.
Do you think they were friendly to you because they knew you came from Guantanamo Bay?
I don't think so, because I didn't see any of those. I didn't see that, or maybe just everything changed.
Did you get any special ribbon for going to Guantanamo? Is that how the Marine Corps works?
I don't know if I got the sea service, because I got two. I got a sea service, and then I got a little, because I went back overseas. I actually went overseas, so I think I did get a ribbon. I think they considered it a sea service or overseas or something like that. So I think we did get something. And so the guys came back, and everything was going smooth. And then I started getting more, it was a whole different environment, right? And then from there, We used to do jungle warfare training with 3-7. And then they got rid of, or they moved. Something happened. They were shuffling things around. They got rid of 3-7 from, it was no longer under the 1st Marine Division, and it went to 29 Palms. So half of and then they were forming a new company with 19, which with, so 19, they were forming a new company. They needed the people, volunteers, to go form that new company because they had an Alpha, Bravo, Charlie.
Yeah.
They needed Delta. And those guys were raiders. They would train urban terrain warfare.
Okay.
So they would do like building clearing, all that stuff. So I don't remember if I volunteered or not. Next thing you know, I just ended up.
You went over there?
Yeah, I went over there, which was way better than ended up in 29 Palms. So I guess half of the guys ended up in 29 Palms. They formed whatever new, or I don't know if 3-7 went to 29 Palms, the whole 3-7. So we went and formed a Delta company with 19. And then from there.
How was that training?
That was a whole different. Over here was just jungle training because we went to Okinawa for 6 months. With 3-7, I went to Okinawa, and then we did, they have like I didn't know at the time, it's some special jungle training.
Yeah.
It's like a big training thing they have there. So I went to Okinawa 6 months, but 2 months out of the 6 months, we did, we went on a 2-month little, some kind of little, like a little float, like a little, we went to countries you don't usually go to, Singapore, Hong Kong, Indonesia. These are not your typical
right
places you go to. And then, because I remember, I don't know if there was some kind of arms sale or something going on with the U.S., because they would, once we get there, we would do training in each country we went to. But then, and then when we were doing training, some days they would kick us off the ship just to go on liberty, and they would have all the weapons displayed, the M60, the 50 cals, the mortars, all that, right? And then, so at that time, I was like, I wonder what's going on. And now that I know years later, I think they were selling arms, right, to these countries.
Yeah.
They were displaying them, so, you know.
They probably had you guys as a show of force, Marines.
Well, I don't know, but I remember every country we went to, we were trained with them.
Yeah.
We would do, like, events with them, and with, Indonesian Marines, and all these countries we went to. Not Hong Kong. Hong Kong was just a liberty, and Singapore was just liberty. And so we did for 2 months, went on this little, which was not part of the normal. Probably too many Marines probably didn't have that experience because it was just some little thing that happened. So I did that. And then we came back, went to 19. They were going to go on a float. So I did 3 different things in 4 years that usually you only do one. You either you're with 19, you do a float.
Yeah.
Maybe you do another float within your 4 years.
That's good though, man. They're great experiences.
You're either with 3-7, you're going to go to Okinawa and maybe go again in those 4 years. So I got to do Cuba, security forces. I did 3-7 jungle and Okinawa training. And then in Okinawa, I did a little 2-month little extra thing.
Yeah.
And then 19, they go on a float for 6 months on a ship. So then I did that. Oh, we only had 8 months to learn all the new stuff, which is urban terrain warfare. So then we had to learn as a company, and then from there we went to you do your final test over in 29 Palms, I think.
What did the final test consist of? Like
It's just
live fire?
big old training thing that they do over there to make sure that you're prepared.
Right.
To go over, because there was still conflicts going on in Iraq even back then.
Yeah.
So we had to be prepared for because anything could kick off, which was there was a bunch of times where we were already on our way to Iraq. I don't know what was going on in Iraq.
Yeah.
All I knew was I was there, and wherever it had to happen. And by that time I already had confidence. I was already in more than 2 years, so I was already like ready.
Yeah.
My first 2 years, I probably would have not known. I would have been like, I'm gonna die. But my last year, probably after 2.5 years, where I actually felt confident. I don't care.
Right.
If something happens, because there was always that thing, because there was always incidents going on overseas. And then back then we would do a lot of training to secure embassies, because there was a lot of coups like in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And then so we would do a lot of training to go and get the people out. A lot of fast roping out of helicopters, all that training, riot control. So we do a lot of that training because that's the main thing that was going on back then was the coups in these different countries that probably the U.S. was causing. But
So as you're about to exit the Marine Corps, did you apply for? Talk to me how you applied for INS and how you got into INS.
so, okay, so so my last year in the Marine Corps, I had already kind of forgot about what I was gonna do next.
Okay.
So I was already like, I was having even though you didn't have that much free time, being in the infantry, you're always either training in the field or overseas or whatever, right? But because there was a time where we would just be there at the base, maybe a few months, and I got to come home. So I was enjoying all that now. I was getting, got to come home on the weekends. I did that for a little bit. And then, we went to train before we went overseas. They called us back early. I don't know if it was just a training thing, see if people were going to show up, because they said we're going to leave early because something was happening overseas.
Yeah.
So everybody had to come, and we had to meet up in Coronado. And then we had and then they said, you know what, never mind. Since we're all loaded up, we're all ready to go, we're just going to stay here the last month before we have to leave. And we're there and ported there in San Diego somewhere, not Coronado. And while we were there for the month in Coronado, we'll go train with the SEALs. And there, when you train on their base, you can't walk nowhere. You have to run everywhere. So once you leave Chow, you go to wherever you're going, you run, you double time. So that's the way it was, because that's the way the SEALs do it. And then so we went through their confidence course, or they call it an obstacle course.
Yeah.
That wasn't no obstacle course. That was a confidence course.
Yeah.
And then so we got to go through that. They went through it like if it was just a regular obstacle course, where we had people that were.
Is that the one you can see if you're driving down the base?
And so we got to do some training. I don't remember that much about it, but I remember we were there. And then next thing you know, we're shipping off. And then for my first time on the ship, like you gotta, I don't know if you've ever been on a ship, but it takes some use because everything's crammed up. There's not really nowhere.
Yeah.
So it takes a week or two to get used to, you don't have that much movement or area to maneuver. And then the bunks are 4.
Damn.
So there's one on the floor, 1 second, third, fourth. And then when you get up, there's no room to change. So you mainly change in put your stuff on in your. So all the ships that was, and then sometimes you're out there for, I don't know how long, where you're just seeing the ocean. And it kind of like, because they have to keep you busy, because if not, you kind of like, because you're looking out there, you don't see no land for like, I don't know if it was weeks or for sure days until you get to your next port. And then, so that was a whole.
During this time, did you have good leadership?
Yeah.
So your leadership was competent?
There was a few that they try to be there. It's because they were kind of, when you try to force it and be phony.
Right.
You could see it. And then it doesn't make a good, you got to find a way to lead. And if you put in a position, but you still got to, you can't fake it, because then they're over aggressive.
Right.
And you could see that. But that was very, I maybe remember one guy that was like that. But that's one thing I did admire. That kind of, I think I carried that. I guess I'm going to get into it, but when I started working for the government, it was total opposite.
Well, that's what I want to start moving into, talking about how you had great leadership, you had an understanding of how things are supposed to function.
Yeah.
Right? And then when was it that you joined INS?
So then when I left, I was like, so then I started getting back, okay, on the Border Patrol thing.
Yeah.
So after I got out, and then I almost ended up in LAPD, because the last week before you get out of the Marine Corps, they send you to the place where they finish up doing your paperwork, get ready so you get out. And then so I was there for a week. Highway Patrol came. No, LAPD came. They started testing people that were in there. I didn't know nothing about it.
Yeah.
I took the test. I passed it. They were doing mass hiring.
Wow.
For LAPD. This was in early 90s. So they were doing mass hiring for LAPD. And then so I took the test. I passed it. I went through the process. And then next thing you know, because it was expedited. So I passed everything, did everything. And they know the military guys, they ain't got much background to do and all that other stuff. So they were mainly gay. I think a lot of military people went into LAPD during that time. So next thing you know, the only thing I had to do, I passed everything. The only thing I had to do was the medical. Show up, do the medical, physical, pass it, and then I was going to go to LA to the 6 month academy. But I was like, I don't want to live in LA, and I don't want to go 6 month academy out of the Marine Corps. And then so I was this close. I was going to end up in LAPD. And then so I said, nah. So then I didn't follow through with that. I had an envelope. I was ready to go. I just had to go past that. And then I was going to go to the academy. So I didn't go. And so I went back to the Valley. And so from there, I started I went on unemployment for like 3 weeks. I got bored.
Yeah.
And then from there, I was like, you know what? I said, I'm going to work security. I'm going to start working security. Oh, because I took the Border Patrol test and I didn't pass it.
You didn't pass it?
Nah. And I took a Highway Patrol test. I didn't pass it. And then I was like, oh, shit. So then I got my guard card and then started working security. Just, guarding farms or whatever, minimum wage, $4.11 an hour.
God damn.
So I did that, guarding quinceañeras.
Yeah.
And then I was pretty because I wouldn't mess around. Like I would take things serious. Like people that would try to come in, even females, I would not let them in if they didn't have and then I was just like that. I was very like I didn't play around, trying to do favoritism and stuff like that. So I did that. I did security. And then from there, a friend of my a friend of my brother's, he was a non-grad guy. He didn't have nothing to do. He wanted to go to California Conservation Corps. So you know what? Go, and then I'll go with you. So I went there. I don't know if you know the California. It's mostly like high school dropouts and stuff like that. So I went with them.
I think my uncle went to that. Yeah.
So I went with them because I was like, it was boring, the security stuff that I was doing.
Yeah.
So then you know what? I'll go with you. And at that time, because I was
they called Job Corps?
Yeah, like Job Corps, but it's called the California Conservation Corps. So you go through like a 2-week training, like an academy. And then from there, you do the push-ups and all that. But I remember I would keep up with because I still had the military in me.
Right.
So I would keep up with the instructors and all that stuff and whatever. Like me, it was odd for me to be there because I wasn't, it was like high school dropouts, people that were trying to get it together. And then, so I did it to back him up. And then so we got the little 2-week training. We went to our Santa Barbara or somewhere up there. Went to our where they send you to do the training was forest fires. You do forest fires and then repairing like the national parks, like building like the little so that's what you did there. They show you the tools and all that. So we went to our first Chatsworth, up in the mountain somewhere, and then but the thing is like he didn't like it, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna stay here. So then we resigned. And they told us you got to come back on a Friday. They told us you got to come back Monday so we could give you a check so you could go back home. So for 2 days, we went to Chatsworth down the mountain, down the hill. We were in Chatsworth sleeping in the street.
Sleeping in the street?
Yeah, on the bus benches, on the because once we resigned, they didn't want us there.
Right.
So we went and walked all the way down. We slept in the park in the daytime. And then Monday, we walked back up. And it was kind of funny because that guy, he wasn't in the military or nothing.
Yeah.
So he was having a hard time, climbing up the hill. And so it was an experience. So then I got back. I went back to security, back to the guy. You know what? I'm back. I told him I was because I had to go to the military. So then okay. And then because I told him, you know what? I went to the military. So he gave me my job back. And then so I started working security again, regular security. I must have did it for like 8 months. And then from there, I worked like 2 months with AT&T. They were doing some kind of special project out in the desert, cables in the ground out in the desert. And then I did that for 2 months because they were paying $7.11 an hour. I was paying $4.11 for security.
Yeah.
And then that was like long hours, like 16 hours a day. And then from there, I seen an advertisement for security at the detention. And I was like, I never knew that place was there. I never heard of it.
Yeah.
Some immigration detention center said, and it said $7.11 an hour. So from $4.11 an hour to $7.11 an hour. And then, so I applied. They were doing a mass hiring because the security was taking over what the immigration officers, the detention officers were doing. So they needed a bunch of security to take control or to take over all the barracks. So we met up. They did all the paperwork, the training, and at a hotel for like 3 days. And then we meet up at the detention center. That's my first time I'm exposed to like a detention, like a jail setting.
Detainees.
Yeah, they were detainees.
Were they from different countries?
At that time, you had a lot of, there were all out of the prisons. There was only maybe one dorm that was all just illegals, and there was all prison. All the prison was coming there after they did their time. So there was a lot of Cubans there. There was a whole dorm of Cubans, and then there was a lot of Jamaicans there. There was a lot of different races. And then that's the first time I started seeing, because I wasn't really exposed like to the sureños and stuff like that. The regular gangs from Brawley, there was a lot of gangs in Brawley where I was actually, there was 2 drive-bys before drive-bys got popular.
Yeah.
Going back a little bit to the high school days, they did a drive-by where I was living at with a pistol, and then they did a drive-by at the park where I was at. And then like a year later, you started hearing about drive-by, like they got popular.
Yeah.
But before it hit the news, there was already drive-bys in Brawley. In the little town, there was like 7 or 8 gangs. You had G Street, you had, I don't know.
Eastside Brawley, BBL, PYS, UWK.
And then you had the Mexicali guys, and then
Chicali.
And then because I wasn't part of none of that. So it's kind of, because if you don't want to be part of that, they're not going to mess with you, like try to force you or nothing like that. And so that was just interesting. I was in the background when bullets were, when they were doing these drive-bys. But so when I got there, and then that's where I started seeing like these guys out of prison, like the Sureños, and I really didn't know anything that much about it, what they were. And to me, I was already used to being, they didn't look no different from the gangs from Brawley.
Right.
The tattoos and the mannerisms and so to me it was like just a normal. I felt like I was just around those guys again. Yeah. Back in the neighborhood there in Brawley. And then there was also a lot of people that I seen in there that I knew. There were immigration proceedings. People that I knew that I met there while I was in Brawley, the 2 or 3 years I was there.
That were working or going through the process?
No, mostly going through. I didn't really know the people that
were getting deported? Yeah.
Okay. They were in proceedings. So they had green cards, and a lot of them didn't even know like that they could actually get deported because they were there they thought they were citizens.
Damn.
A lot of them didn't even realize that what is this? Like, they got in trouble. Yeah. And then they got a removable charge, got them put in proceedings.
During this time frame, what was the capacity like in there? Like, were there a lot of people? A little bit of people.
Back then, I think they only had 4 dorms, and I think it was a total of 400, maybe more or less.
400?
Yeah.
Throughout your career, would you see those numbers change and fluctuate?
Yeah, it doubled up. They built 4 whole new dorms, so then they had anywhere between 600 and up to 1,000. But when it got up to 1,000, it was overflows. But they would have to sleep on the floor.
Damn.
And because it depends on what was going, because there's been other mass movements. Not this last one. This last 4 years, that was the longest one. That was a 4 year straight. But before that, you would have like mass movements throughout different times. So then we had to deal with them, the overflows. And it was just different races, different times. Like one time, it was a bunch of Chinese that just all of a sudden just came over at once. A bunch of people from India. We have all the India people there. And they would all just travel like in big... So yeah, anywhere between 600 and 1,000, maybe 900 and something at the most. And but at that time, at the beginning, when I first started, it was the detention officers with INS, and then Border Patrol come do overtime at the dorms because they were short. They were short to run the dorms. So Border Patrol would come, and back then it was just open. You were just there. Eventually, they would build like a little area where you're kind of caged off the detainees.
Was there any guns?
No, you had a baton.
Pepper spray?
I don't remember. I don't think
Just a good old baton?
Yeah, just a baton.
Keys?
Yeah, big old key.
Radio?
Radio.
Okay.
So they would have that, and then the Border Patrol would be there. And then I think eventually they build the little cage area where you're actually behind the... So eventually it would be one officer in the cage, one officer inside with them. There was two, it was a open barracks, and there was two sides. So he would just kind of hang out, walk around.
Was there ever assaults amongst the residents there?
Oh yeah, that was
There
the first thing I got exposed to. I was security. Didn't get to I couldn't do anything as security, and then the first fight I seen was in the kitchen. Like the first time I seen a big old fight break out in the when they were feeding.
Damn.
During feed, and then I just seen like plates flying and all this stuff, and I was there like, and then I was in the kitchen. I had kitchen duty in the back, and I was like, oh, and then I seen the detention. All the officers came, whatever, and then but back then you had some rough officers. Were pretty rough. Back in this was the early 90s, which I heard is the same probably everywhere. Prison, you had a whole different type of...
Give me some examples of being rough.
Well, they didn't mess around. Like once they put their hands on you, it was going to be a hard, there was no, let me, at the end.
Let me be gentle with you.
Yeah, at the end, they ended up being like that. But, you had to do all these warnings, all this.
Mm-hmm.
But at the beginning, it was like, and...
real quick. Do you think for a correctional setting that type of demeanor or command presence needs to be had?
Yeah, because that showed off. Yeah, because they know you're not gonna. Because they knew you weren't gonna. If they act up, it was gonna be dealt with. So it was way better. It was way safer than what it turned out to be at the end, babying them. And,
correct.
And babysitting them, and the only thing, and then there was a lot of back then. I don't remember. I think it was just a memo. If you put your hands on somebody, it was just you wrote your memo, and that was it. Thing. That I remember. Use of force came in later.
Right.
The use of force form, and then more like, okay, you could have done this. You could have,
Yeah.
And then after that, well, it wasn't. It kind of like at first it was kind of fun because and then later on.
So during that time frame, things make sense. Inmates get out of control. You guys put them back in control. Minimal report writing to none. How was the leadership at that time? Or do you even realize, did you even know who your leadership was because of your position?
Okay. Speaking of security, because I did security 3 years.
Yeah.
There. So I don't remember much about doing the security stuff. And then once I went over to the actual INS as a detention officer, okay, and then I was under the leadership of the government.
Right.
The supervisors. Actually, everything was good. The only thing that the complaint I would have about those days was the favoritism.
Yeah.
There was cliques, bad, and then for me, because I wasn't, I didn't like that.
Who were they hooking up? People from their hometown,
just people
family?
People that they knew from child. There was a lot of people that everybody knew each other.
Right.
So they were, they would, like another thing was like for some reason sports, like people would have this bond because of sports. But I didn't watch sports. So I couldn't get into the. I wasn't part of the crowd.
You were a lone wolf,
plus,
bro.
Yeah. Plus, I was like more of a. I was always serious. I always wanted to do things. Like I hated like playing games.
Correct.
I hated like doing things just, for no reason. Or people messing around, like horse playing. I didn't like that.
Right.
And but the detention, that was the only thing I think would be the favoritism of the little cliques.
But other than that, it seems like in the beginning time of your career, you were enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the pay was massive compared to $4 an hour.
The only thing, yeah. Okay, and then it went up. Actually, it went probably even for when I was making with the security company.
Yeah.
And then probably even, but then you started moving up, your grade level. So then you were making, eventually you would make more than what was security. So I did the detention stuff. We did all kinds of stuff. Of course, when I did bailiff, court, I did, and then fights all the time, breaking up fights, slamming people.
Why were they fighting? Just disagreements?
Just, yeah.
Gang violence?
I think there was maybe a few incidents because of gangs, but not. It was mostly just disagreements.
Was there an isolation area?
Yeah, we had the special management unit, which is the cells. It was like
What did that look like?
18 cells. It was just one little building, and you had about nine little cells on each side, and that's where the people that were getting in trouble go.
What were the cell doors made out of? Solid or bars?
It was a solid door and it had an opening.
For
like
the food?
Yeah, and then a little window.
And how long could the inmates stay up until there for?
I think 2 weeks.
Damn.
Except for the I don't know, I can't remember because he had PCs.
You did?
Protective custody.
Who
So,
would be considered a PC?
Well, at one time it was the like the he-she's and
They had them there?
the trans people. Yeah, but eventually later on, once it got political, they were out and about.
Hey, bro, once we got political, they gave them the keys and they
Yeah.
were running the show?
So, okay, these guys could be, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, so you only had the norteños for sure. Those guys never.
Okay.
But very rarely you would have a norteño. And then, so right as soon as we knew he was coming right away. Get him out.
You'd be surprised right now, man. They're welcome down south and they're intermingling
Yeah,
amongst
that's
state
what I've been
prisons.
seeing. Well, they're trying to force it, but those guys have their rules. I don't know if it's gonna work out. But so you had that. You had because we had a lot smaller population. Because when they would get in fights, it was mostly race. There was a lot of race. They get in fights because of their
Race riots?
not-
or like
well,
one-on-one?
like just brawls. Not like brawls. Like maybe like 5-10 guys against
With
10
weapons or
guys.
no weapons?
No, because we would do constant shakedowns.
Okay.
When they went to eat, we would shake it down. When they come back, they get patted down probably 2 different times. So it was weird. I don't think that I've known, or at least me, I never found like any shanks on anybody.
Would they make alcohol?
Yeah, they would make Pruno.
Yeah.
And but drugs was the other one that, because I guess you did have some officers that would bring it in, and then you would have it. They would throw it over the fence while they were in the yard.
Yeah.
While they were out in the yard, people pass by the back street, because I forgot what street that is, because it's right there in town. So you have the neighborhood there. So they would drive by, throw us over.
Is that the one by Big Five?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or they would throw like tennis balls. They would have all the stuff in there. They'd throw the tennis ball over. And so it wasn't that big of a problem, but you would have here and there like drugs. Shanks, we didn't really give them a chance to.
At that time, what kind of drugs was it?
I don't remember. I think it was just marijuana, I think. I'm not sure.
How about any assaults on the staff members? Were that happening?
Yeah.
Oh, it was?
No, not bad ones. Just maybe they got a hit or two off, and then they would get, because back then, they would get roughed up by the old timers there,
Yeah.
and yeah, so it didn't happen too much unless they were a little 5150.
Yeah.
Those
Did you guys have crazy people
Yeah.
there?
All of a sudden they would just go off, but you
Goddamn.
had to know. You had to know what you had,
Right.
and if you let your guard down, they were going to start wailing on you.
How important is it to have your guard up working in a correctional setting?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. The whole thing is because, as soon as you left there or you get complacent, that's when things happen. And the time, because you could get complacent because sometimes, nothing would happen and you're kind of like, and then sure enough, and then, but you could tell by when they would come to eat, you can tell something was you can feel
The tension.
the tension when they would come to eat, a fight's going to break out. Get ready. And then you could and then bam, all of a sudden just plates flying. And then, because in one of them, actually a big old fight broke out. And then it was an Armenian guy. I got him and I slammed him. Because on video, too bad I couldn't get a copy of the video. But when I slammed him, Like his legs went flying in the air and he landed hard. And then I went over him and put my knee on him. And then I was on my radio.
Where'd you learn that? The Marine Corps?
No, it was mainly because I was always horseplay like that.
Okay.
So those moves that were natural to me because of Brawley messing around.
Yeah.
We're always messing around. And then for some reason.
Rough housing.
Yeah. So hip throw, that was my go-to. None of this training that they try to teach you, you're not going to remember none of that.
Right.
At the academy, the little training that it has to be something natural that you're used to because you've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
And so those were always the go-to to me was the judo. For some reason, I was a good.
Do you believe that the generation of today, which I believe is called Gen Z, do you believe they are softer in life because they lack that physical altercation with one another?
You know what? I don't know because I don't have your typical gym because I don't know, my kid's, he's 22.
Probably, yeah.
But my kid, I was wrestling with him since he was little. I would grab him and then put more tension on him.
Bro, I have no doubt that you were a good dad, bro.
So it kind of reminds me like of the Spartans where the guy was wrestling with his kid.
Yeah.
Like I would do that to my kid.
Yeah, go.
And he was getting older. I would put more. Plus, I knew the basic jujitsu stuff, so I would do that.
Yeah.
And get him in my guard, mount him, put pressure on him, and then a lot of horseplay. And he was a strong kid. He was an aggressive kid. But I would teach him, you know what? Okay, eventually you're not going to have this energy. So you can't just be going all out. And then eventually, I think once he got 6 to 16 years old, that's the last time I did that.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to beat me, and I could see he was going to get hurt.
Who was going to get hurt?
Him. Because at that time, I actually had to do real, to stop him.
Like real force.
Like real force. And that's the last time I go, you know what? Because he wouldn't he didn't know what tapping, he wouldn't do it.
Right.
He was like, I'm going to beat. Like, he just changed. So after that, you know what? No, I can't. Either he's going to have to go to a real place if he wants to continue.
Right.
Or with me, for some reason, he takes it personal.
But I don't think the majority of fathers in today's day and age are raising their children to be that, assertive and engaging.
No. Plus, I used to be real strict when he was little. If he misbehaved, I would probably yank him with a year.
Was your father strict with you?
Mm-mm.
No?
My father was because I think we were his third family. His first two families, because he was I guess he was kind of like a rebel type. So he had divorces. His kids didn't talk to him. So when we were his family,
he did it right.
Yeah, he was totally, he got his life together, and so he was a totally different person.
You felt you had to be strong, firm in your son's life. Why? Because of the Marine Corps?
You know what? I think it was the Marine Corps that must have did that to me, because I had no reason to, no. And then also just seeing, because almost everybody that I knew growing up was in jail or dead. Okay. So, and just seeing that, and then after seeing the stuff that I seen, reading people's rap sheets,
right,
and all these people in trouble, and I think that's what turned me into being strict on him. You know what? This ain't a game. Everybody, I might have got lucky that I got to go this way, because everybody that I knew died, drug addict, or never got their stuff together, 100%. Or got deported.
Facts, dude.
And then so I was like, that's why I was like, why am I so? But I was like, and in a way, I was like, I think it was good in a way, because he didn't end up like the rest of these, the regular new generation of being pampered. But in a way, it's something I think, man, maybe I was a little too. So I don't know. I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing.
I think you did it right, bro.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You don't strike me as a person that goes overboard. You seem level-headed and cool, calm, collective.
Yeah, because in the moment, yeah. But then I would talk to him afterwards.
But I would like for you to maybe give some tips to a new correctional staff member of how important it is to understand your environment.
Yeah, it's very important. And the only thing is you're going to get caught up, because you're going to have these different types of people there working. You're going to have the people that don't care. You're going to have the people that are just weak. You're going to have the people that are too aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And those are just phonies that
Facts.
That probably, I mean, I don't, maybe because the way I grew up and I seen all this stuff growing up. So you can see these people that try too hard, and they're a little too aggressive, and Because I've had people, I just tell them, you know what, we're trying to take a guy down. He's too aggressive. You know what, get out.
Right.
Like, get out, let me, and I did it myself.
Yeah.
By myself, I would put a guy and take care of the other guy. You know, there's people like that, they spaz. And so that's the thing that makes it hard, is depends what kind of different officers are in your unit or around you, or because you can tell whenever you get to a dorm, okay, who's the officer I'm here with.
Did you have more problems with partners or with the detainees?
No, inmates was nothing like.
Bro, it's funny how everybody says that, dude. Everybody.
Because you would get the you know, the people that try to mostly because I was always in shape, so they can tell who they would test it. That's why I always believed in officer presence. And then, but I wasn't an ass. I was just, you know what? And I think a lot of them knew that you know, because I wasn't gonna hesitate.
Right.
Even though when it got to the point where we had to give them 3 warnings,
right.
Eventually it came to that later on during the years, and it would just be 3 quick ones, and boom, you're on.
So basically, dude, like, how important is physical fitness in life in general, but specifically working in law enforcement?
Well, my main thing was because I always carried that from the Marine Corps,
right?
Because of the uniform, always, you know, your presence. Even in law enforcement, they say officer presence. That's the first to defuse the situation is officer presence, and then from there, hopefully, then you don't have to go spray in the baton or hands on. Mine was hands on.
You mind if I tell them your age, bro?
Yeah, it's fun.
58 years old, man. 58.
In about a week.
Better shape than 95% of the regular people out here, man.
As a matter of fact, I used to do a lot of running, but I got paranoid because of my age. And I said, you know what? I don't want to get a heart attack. Because I was scared. I started getting paranoid of, because you never know, not the heart attack was a bad heart, but because the ones that, you know, where your heart.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then I kind of like 4 years ago, I stopped kind of like I really don't run no more. But I've always either weightlifted for sure, nonstop. And then if not, I would do a lot of cardio. I would always do something.
Do you believe that the detainees didn't test you or didn't push your buttons because they knew you didn't mess around?
Yeah, they knew. As a matter of fact, when that fight broke out in the kitchen, that's what kind of, because you could see it on video when I slammed that guy and the way I got on top of him.
Yeah.
And then everything like froze. Even the OIC at that time goes, you should give this guy, you know, son, because he's the one that kind of, everything kind of like stopped. And then, because if you see it on video, it was like, and then the guy was like, he was a little stocky Armenian guy. And he was a little bigger than me. And then, because I remember they wouldn't stop fighting, and he was punching one of the other guys over one of the old timers that was there, a little short officer. We had a lot of officers there who were kind of like paisa types. Yeah. That mostly, if you spoke to them, they spoke to you in Spanish. Okay. The officers, the originals that were there. So he was trying to like really not doing nothing, trying to hold that guy in his place, and the other guy was punching over him. So that's when I grabbed that guy and did that. So it kind of diffused everything, calmed everything down. And even though this is during the time when I started getting distaste for the way, the favoritism, because the way they would write up, like, even though I didn't like that, the Attaboys awards and all that. Yeah. But it's still, you could see like none of the supervisors followed up on, you know, okay, this happened, even though IC said it. Right. None of the supervisors and there was one time in the isolation where a guy went on the roof of the isolations and he was on the edge of the building. Me and another supervisor were trying to talk him, you know, because we didn't know if he was going to jump or what. And I remember the supervisor was talking to him, and then I remember I was okay, should I go? And then I jumped, and I already had it in my mind, if I grab him, I have to fall back this way. Yeah. So I jumped, I grabbed him, and then pulled him back in. Damn. Nothing for that.
How did that guy get up onto the building?
Because inside there's a little closet, and then there's a ladder that goes up. So somehow, I don't know how they let him out, and then he got up there. It was a Cuban. So I remember a lot of things that I did, and then I would see the way they would give attaboys to, like, for no reason, for just dumb stuff.
To lames.
Yeah.
What about ass kissers?
Even though, that. But even though it didn't, it kind of bothered me just to, man, what is this place?
So this is you getting a taste for it.
Yeah, because back then I wasn't really, plus I'm actually, because I was more of a, I guess now the terms I'm starting to learn is, I guess I was an introvert.
Introvert, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm starting to learn all these new terms. I don't know. And then I was just a very quiet, but I didn't like playing games. That was my whole thing. I didn't like playing games for we gotta do things right. We gotta.
So as all this is happening, I'm sure you were raised to stay quiet as well, not complain.
Yeah. But I did go through my time of complaining about, but
in the beginning,
it's because the environment. What happens is the environment around you eventually, because I wasn't like that.
Correct.
And then eventually, as time went by, I started turning into like everybody else, like gossiping and tugging.
How far into your career?
No, that was like probably 10 years.
Okay.
Of just after.
That's understandable.
Yeah, and then you see things like, because my saying was, you can't beat them, join them. And then after a while, like I would just hold a lot of things in, like what is this? And then another bad thing back then is I didn't like doing overtime. Because I also wanted, I used to like to go lift weights. I used to go run. And then, so I didn't want to be there all, 16 hours a day. So I didn't like doing overtime.
Were there guys that were overtime hogs?
Oh, yeah. And then at that time, I guess, that time I was taking care of my father. He was elderly. They cut his leg off. So, but back then they didn't have no mercy about whatever you had at home was your personal issues. And so I remember, and then it turned, like, it goes from extremes, like, okay, we don't care what you got going on, you figure it out, to the other extreme at the end before I left, like, they have to cater to the officer, whatever, he's got going on, you're going to have to cater to his, and the other officers are going to have to figure it out. And it goes from one extreme to the next, instead of there being some kind of balance. So then that's what I seen, just the extremes of to me, that's a lack of leadership. Like, you don't know.
Is it, well, yeah, it's lack of leadership, but what about how often was leadership changing? Were they staying put for a while, or?
The regular first liners, second liners, yeah, they were there like the whole time. I remember for years and years and years. The only thing that would change constantly was the OIC, the officer in charge, like of the whole facility. And they were usually there, 3 or 4 years?
Okay.
So you can tell the first one that was there, he wore like his own military outfit. And actually, I think he was the best one that I liked.
Yeah.
Was that guy. And people were like, what is he wearing? Like he had his own he looked like a military uniform.
But it was not a military uniform?
No. And then he was like, and he didn't play no games. One time there was a detainee, he was on top, he said he was going to jump, he was going to hang himself. And then I remember he was scolding them. He was this and that. He wasn't babying them. And then he didn't play no games at all.
Was he Mexican?
No, he's a white guy.
White dude?
Mm-hmm.
Was he from California?
Yeah, I think he was from San Diego.
Okay.
And then him, but
was he crazy?
No, he was just a military-ish.
Okay.
And then you can tell as the different OICs how the kind of the atmosphere changed a little bit. And then I guess also
Now, as the OICs change, did you observe any of your peers try to kiss ass to the new OICs?
Yeah, I hate it. I couldn't stand that. And that's one thing that, I don't know. I never understood that. Like, I never seen, because in the military, you'll see it a little bit, kind of. But that was not really, because they're the NCOs, the corporals and above, you couldn't, like, that was very strict. And that's one thing I wish was with the federal government, which it should be. You shouldn't be friendly.
Fraternizing.
Yes, because I didn't like that the regular officers, with maybe the first liners, but not and there was sometimes there was favoritism all the way to the top, and that's one thing that I dislike. Or like on promotion, whenever there was going to be an opening for a promotion, man. Like, it was unbelievable the way people behave. Like, just seeing that put a distaste in my mouth. Where, like,
give us some examples.
It's hard for me to.
Sabotaging?
No, it's hard for me to because so many. It's because I mix things up because it was so many years, so many different.
Right.
Sometimes I mix incidents up, but that for sure was like,
But I mean, did you ever see where one of your coworkers would put another coworker down to make themselves look better?
yeah, they would talk bad about each other. I guess like politics. It was like, well, I guess it's politics.
It's human behavior, bro. I've come to realize it's human behavior, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, you know what? That's why I had no interest ever. I don't ever want to be in management. I don't ever want to be. I'm just going to stay here in the trenches.
Did you stay in the trenches?
Yeah.
So tell me about how you went from detaining officer to the other positions that you.
Oh, and then from there, what happened? 9/11 happened, and then they got rid. There was also a lot of problems going on with INS because of the favoritism with the promotions. There was something going on in the upper ranks.
Okay. Locally or
no,
or,
like the whole agency. So there was issues going on, and then I guess this was the opportunity when 9/11 came. You know what? Let's get rid of INS. There's too many issues, too many EEOs, and I don't know what it was back then. And then we're gonna get rid of all that. We're gonna create a new. There's our chance. They created Department of Homeland Security. Got rid of INS, and then they combined the port. It was no longer customs and inspectors. It was a combination. And then with us, where was it? Immigration enforcement agents. That's where we were. And then Border Patrol was just Border Patrol.
so you said it broke down to HSI, ERO, and what else?
Just those two with us, with ICE. So it was HSI and then ERO. And then ERO, though at that time we were immigration enforcement agents. That's where we went to from detention. We had to go back to the academy. You passed the academy, and now you're part of the new immigration enforcement agent. And then from there later.
So when you went to ERO, did you feel good because at that time were you fed up where you were at?
Well, I stayed there. They were barely opening it up to get out of the detention. And then, but at that time it was just doing like Centinela and Calipat interview, and there was a little trailer outside the prisons.
Yeah.
And you would go inside, interview the guys that were getting ready to get out that had immigration holds. And then, so that was the first opportunity to get out of the detention center.
Okay.
And then, so for me, I didn't put in, even though I was fed up, I didn't put in right away to get out. Because I was like comfortable. I didn't want to. When am I going to learn all this new stuff over here?
Right.
So eventually, it came to the point. Yeah, I had to get out. I had to go because at that time, I don't know how, in my mid-30s maybe. At that time, I was so fed up. I even put in to be. I came and took a test here in San Diego to be harbor police.
Okay.
And I was already working for the federal government as a detention officer.
Right.
And I was going to go to the city. It made no sense, but I was fed up, I guess. And I wanted a whole new, so I came to do the harbor police, but I didn't get a high enough score to even be considered, to keep going.
So your story is not abnormal, man. There's a lot of men that join, and women, that join these agencies and they reach a point where they freaking get fed up and they start looking for other options. And
the thing I think is because when I went in like, man, I didn't even know I could work for I came in as I guess an immigrant. I grew up in all the low, well, first the poverty of Mexico.
Right.
Doesn't even compare to the poverty here. My cousins thought I was rich and we were poor.
Right.
So then growing up just poor. And then when it come time, like, oh, I could actually go work for the government.
Yeah.
Like it felt like an honor. Like, man, I get, go work for the government. And then so from there, I was like, so I went in there, with a sense of I always had, even till now, even during 9/11, I was working for as an ICE officer, and I wanted to go to
9/11.
Yeah, I even wrote a letter to Washington D.C. or the White House or something.
Yeah,
because I said, how can I get back in the military? I wrote a letter. And then they wrote a letter back. Oh, thank you for your service and this and that. And they wrote a letter, right? But I still had this sense of duty even back. I was already in 10 years. I was going to actually, and I had my spouse at that time. And I was actually going to, that's how much I was like, I felt a sense of duty.
Right.
to this country for some reason. That I wanted. I got pumped up. I got pumped up in the. I didn't get to go to the Iraqi one because that one happened. The first one, the Operation Desert Shield.
Yeah.
Because it happened 3 months after I left, and so that one. And then I was all trained up, and I was just like, and then the only thing I got to go back to Camp Pendleton and just help with the School of Infantry.
Yeah.
That's the only thing they let me do. So I couldn't go back. Even though I was in active reserve, they could have activated. So for some reason, but like things happen for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason, dude.
So it didn't happen, even though, but I've always had this feeling I was pissed out because I didn't get, because I was infantry. So I did all this training, and then I always felt this sense of I didn't get to go do my what I was supposed to do, or what I was trained to do.
You know, I always tell people that tell me that they're better off.
Oh, yeah.
Way better off. Because ultimately, what you get with that is going to fucking stay with you forever.
So, 9/11, I still had that sense of, I always had this sense of duty.
Yeah.
And then what I figured out later on, why did things bother me? So is something wrong with me? Why does everything bother me when things aren't run right? Or when people like, all this
incompetence, favoritism, nepotism,
and nobody really care, or and then I found out, what I think it's because most people went in there as a job, or they went in there, or they ended up there. Like, to me, like, it was just, okay, I have a little more money, I make a little more money, I never was going to these except for the security, where they were paying minimum wage. That was the only time I said, you know what, I got to go here because they make more money.
Right.
Everything else was just like a sense of duty. And I felt like, and then the thing was, I think, you got to follow your instincts, where I messed up, I think, and I followed comfort, because at the same time I got hired for detention, INS, I also got hired for Border Patrol. My Border Patrol, because eventually I passed it, and I went through the whole process, and I needed to pick a location, and that's it. And at that time, I was working security there 3 years, and then they picked me up for INS, for detention officer. And I was like, you know what? I'm comfortable here.
Yeah.
I went for the comfort. Instead of going Border Patrol, I think would have been a better fit for me. And because I still had the military-ish.
Yes and no, because they had to deal with their own BS.
Yeah.
With all the politics.
Yeah, and then I found out, those things were going on there too.
Correct.
What do they call it? The good old boys, they call it.
Everything, dude.
So that was just a thing back then of that era. And so I ended up eventually 2011, I think I finally came out to the what would you call it, the non-detained unit.
What is that?
Those are the ones that do all the people that are out on bonds, or you go look for the fugitives.
You were doing that?
Yeah, that was all part of ERO.
So that's when you told me you were wearing civilian clothes.
Yeah, so that was part of the non-detained.
Did you have a badge tucked underneath?
Yeah, the badge.
So you're undercover.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Would you ever participate in like big raids or with unit HSI?
Not really, because it wasn't that much. There wasn't that much. Okay. There wasn't. And then it started getting political too. Like one time, there was a time where we were taking people that had warrants in Mexico for murder. Okay, you two take this guy, meet up the officials at the border, and turn him over. He has a warrant for murder.
Right.
Later on, it turned into a dog and pony show. The people were religiously, they had to go to TJ, they had to go in a caravan, they had to meet up all these officials, because I went one time, and they had to meet, and then there was photos and all kinds of stuff. I was like, wait a minute, we were doing this like 2 years ago, just whoever, 2 officers available, pick up this guy, he has a warrant, meet the consulate at the border, turn him over to the Mexican, the federals.
And just hand them off?
Yeah, and just hand them off. And then next thing you know, it turned into like, that's one thing I didn't like. I didn't like the politics.
Dude, you got to see the change and the BS, man.
That's why I stayed where I was at, but I was very observant, and especially being I guess being an introvert type person, you're always looking, you're always thinking,
right.
You're always analyzing.
Where do you think these changes from your vantage point were coming from? Like Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, everything, yeah.
Everything was coming down from Washington. And the filth was filtering into the...
And you could just see that. And it got to the point where, like when some of the top brass would come from San Diego, from the field office, or here, San Diego, to Imperial, to the field office, like I had to get out. I couldn't be there when they were walking around.
Bro, you remind me a lot about myself, man.
Because and then you could see some guy, there were certain people, I don't want to say their names, but they were like, they wanted to acknowledge their rank. But this agency does not deserve that. This agency is not, the Marine Corps, yes.
Yeah.
But the agency elects a leader. There's no leadership. There's management. It turned in at the end, it was just management. Because before there was a time when they were hiring like the next level up of supervisors, it had to be because leadership skills, and you knew your job, and you went to now you could lead your. But then at the end, they didn't care about leadership. It was just management.
Could you give me the difference between a leader and a manager?
A manager is just, he's gonna do no matter what the next level, even though it's in the policies or not.
Even though it's in the policy or not.
I know, yeah.
Was there times that you observed violation of policy?
Yes, but the thing is, I didn't know enough about it. I didn't care enough about it. I was already dealing just with regular life stuff outside of there.
Right.
And then I didn't have even the smarts or the know-how or even the motivation to try to, like you were doing, like attacking because they're.
I'm not knocking you, bro, because that's your generation. Mm-hmm. That's your generation. That's my father's generation. You guys did was what you guys had at that time. Just grind it out. Just grind that shit out. Me, I had access to the internet. I could fucking, learn how to fire back. Now, what are the characteristics of a leader?
Well, somebody that for sure doesn't show favoritism. That was the main one. And then who leads by example. And then they know like their job. They know, like, and then, I don't know, it's hard for me to.
No, you're right on the money, bro. You're right on the money.
So, yeah, you could see. It's because the bad thing is I compare things to and this is not, even though to me, because, I went in there, it's an honor to work for the government. And then to see the behavior, like, that actually bothered me. Like it was hard for me to, like, and then eventually I would participate too in the normal horse playing and then.
Now, when you were participating in stuff that you did not want to participate with, did you not feel right inside?
Yeah. And I was like, when did this happen? Why am I? And then, because there was a time, like, at the end where I was like, hey, did you hear so-and-so and this and that? And, like, a lot of just, like acting like kids.
Was that also affecting your personal life?
You know what? Yeah, everything because I would hold a lot of things in. And then eventually it would get to, like, when I got home. Because sometimes the kid, even though I had my kid, and I would give him the attention, but now that I see everything, I wasn't giving him the attention that needed to be given because I still had the stuff from work that would bug me, and I was holding stuff in, and just stuff that distaste of stuff at work. And then, like, they tell you, don't bring your personal problems here, but I would take my work problems, and I wouldn't focus on
That's common. That's extremely common.
On more that I could have focused on because of the frustration. And now I think, man, maybe I should have just I'm not gonna do nothing about anything, or move on. Because those times where, I gotta move on. I gotta go here. Because I seen people that were fed up and they went to either HSI, or they went to they got out of there.
But were they happier over there?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, you know what they say, the grass isn't always green on the other side.
And the only thing about these other places is the hours were way longer.
Right.
So then I was like, well, it's not gonna, because I was at that time I was a single parent. I was taking care of my kid, so I had full custody of him. And so then that kind of, like, even though I could have still made it work, but at the moment I was like, is it worth it? I was too undecisive. And so then I would just have to deal with just holding stuff in that I seen the Unprofessionalism.
Did you ever see people get wrongfully terminated? Do people get fired from that job? Or harassed or retaliated against?
You know what? I know there was, but I don't remember right now, like offhand. But there was. Well, I was one of them, because I guess for some reason, because I was in part of the cliques,
Right.
So I wasn't kissing up to the management at that time, to the supervisors. And then from there, I guess it seemed like, because I was quiet, I was serious, I wanted to get things done like the way they're supposed to be done. And then I guess I wasn't fitting. That type of person wasn't fitting in the environment. And then,
But you know what's crazy is that your personality should be what's running the whole entire organization.
Yeah. And then, there was one of, I guess, the topper managers. I guess he got a hold of one of the first liners, and he told me, you know what? And then, so they were kind of harassing me for a while. But the bad thing is, okay, I'll kind of like not really say much to you, because I don't have a middle. I'm either going to,
Okay.
let you get away with whatever. But then when it comes to that, because there was a couple of times where I was going to fight the supervisor because of the way they were talking to me.
Yeah.
And it got to that level.
Do you feel that they were talking down to you or disrespecting you?
Yeah.
Or as trying to assert themselves over you because of their rank?
Yeah. And then that's when it got to that point, like, and then but there was a few incidents like that. But
what happened with the COVID and the vaccination?
eventually at the end, I ended up, the COVID stuff came, and there was already a cluster there with what was going on back then? I forgot what was going on, but the COVID came, and then I was watching the news. What's going on with this virus? When it first came out, I was like, okay, what's this virus? I was going to the gym. Okay, what's going on with this virus? Watching the news. Okay, it's over here, it's here, this is happening. I'm going to keep going to the gym.
Yeah.
Less people were going to the gym. It was still open. I was going to the gym. I was still doing normal stuff. Telling the kids, hey, start eating, start drinking water, start preparing, because there's some kind of virus. And then next thing you know, and then they closed the gym down. And then I was like, and then that's when I started seeing that's another thing that got to me, was when all this, the riots with Antifa. I was watching all this stuff.
Yeah.
And back then I was an agent, and I was getting so mad that the agency was not responding to these situations. And I was like, what is God? Why are they letting these people just burn down America?
Right.
And Antifa and this and that. As a matter of fact, they have the Proud Boys.
Yeah.
I was like cheering those guys on because they were the only ones that were standing up.
Right.
And what happens is the federal government or the law enforcement goes after those guys, targets those guys, and classifies them as domestic terrorists. And I'm like, so just to top it off, after already seeing
You're losing your damn mind, bro.
yeah, I'm almost like, you got to be, like, what is going, and then I was like, and then, so I seen all that, and then the virus was like, that's when the virus was the main, and then, oh no, but they have a right to protest their racism or whatever they were.
BLM or stuff?
Yeah. And I was like, you got to be. And then the thing is, because I was conflicted. I was working there. And then, and then I'm working as a federal officer. But I was like, you know what? I think I'd rather go out and I'm going to resign and go fight for the country. That was my main thing, is for the country, not for the government.
Correct.
My thing is the Constitution and the founding fathers and the what the foundations of this government. That's because in the Marine Corps they say, was it God, country, corps? Was God for sure? Country always meant the Constitution, not the government, and then corps is family,
Right.
which is the Marine Corps was your family, and that's the way I interpret those.
Do you believe having a government is essential to the United States of America?
Yeah, because I look at society. It's because of society they let themselves. It's more of a setup. A lot of things are like the drugs and it's out there. People fall for it, and they're
Absolutely.
and because government, that gives an excuse for there to be a government, even bigger than it has to be.
It's manufactured chaos.
Yeah. And then people are because I see sometimes, because that's why I'm like, you know what? I don't feel like I'm down to a level where I'm just going to be a civilian. I still feel a sense of duty because of the country.
Correct.
Even though I think the country it's gone. I think it's been gone.
Do you believe mainstream media?
No.
Did you ever reach a point where you realized they were lying?
Yeah. A long time ago.
A long time ago? Like when?
Oof, like 20 years ago, 15 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, even back then when I was in the Marine Corps. Because
Okay.
the things I remember is don't believe everything you read, don't trust the government. From this stuff I was hearing from, and that stuff was always in my head. And what else? And these little sayings, that the sticks and stones may break your bones, and
If the government is here and says if you need their help or something.
I don't know why I feel this dedication to the country.
I feel you, bro.
But and the thing is, what makes it funny is because I wasn't even born in this country.
Correct.
And when I was seeing all this stuff going on with the Black Lives Matter, and I was like, when are the people, the Americans? I wasn't even born here, and I'm pissed off. When is the country? Aren't those the original, the main, the country people,
Do you believe? Well, not the ones you're talking about. Do you believe Americans, patriotic Americans, are built of a different breed?
Yeah, but it's hard to, I don't know, because I've seen some of these patriot types.
Oh, not those guys. Not the.
They seem kind of
No, not the ones that are out there doing
Yeah,
weird stuff. But I'm talking about like yourself, man.
yeah.
That would basically die for their country.
Everybody's out for themselves.
Nowadays.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough. Even sometimes these YouTubes pop up about these special forces, these ex-SEALs guys.
Oh, they're beefing right now.
But I was like, what is going on?
Like women.
And then I'm like, and then they started getting brave because of the Palestine protests.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why didn't they speak up when the real ones were going on? Like, these are mainly women that are protesting whatever's going on there with the issues with Palestine and all this.
Yeah.
And those are mainly campuses, women. None of these guys popped up during the Black Lives Matter and the guys that are going to fight you.
Now, some people might say that that's racist. Is it a racism thing or is it an actions thing?
No, it's an actions. It's a racism. Like the first time I ever heard about racism, when I was in the Marine Corps, I got racist remarks.
Did they call you derogatory words?
Yeah, like beaner and but that never.
Right.
And then that's the first time I was exposed to I guess they call it the black card, when I started seeing the.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, back then, I didn't know nothing about that because I witnessed it in Cuba, and the guy they took him out of our unit, and he was the general's driver the year he was there, or the rest of the time he was there in Cuba. He was just driving not the general, the colonel.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I heard about that. I didn't know about, that's why I seen people, the way they were act towards black people. Oh, I don't want to, that's just the way, I'm from that era, so that's the way I speak. But I could see the hesitation to address, that population, but not with the Mexicans or not with anybody else. So for some reason, just with that population.
Now, when it came to the vaccine and all these political changes, were you forced to get the vaccine?
Yeah, because that's when I was listening. They were trying to, they were messing, trying to intimidate you right first at the beginning, trying to get you to, and then because I was watching this every day, I was watching and then Biden, what he had to say, and the governor, and man, that put so much, I think, because right now my nerves, I got a nerve issue that happened because of all the accumulated.
Yeah, definitely.
Like something happened. I got my wires went haywire a little bit.
No, it's all the neurons or whatever it's called.
So something happened, but because I was watching that every day, I was listening, and then I was also thinking, what am I gonna do? And then, man, I don't want to get this because I was scared of the shot. And then I was like, man, until then. And then that one day the president came out, everybody will. I was going to go and then resign that day. I was going to tell you know what?
Who was the president at that time?
Biden. And then, because he's under our chain of command.
Right.
He's the top guy. And then, so his order goes directly to what he says is executive order. You could try to challenge it, but it, as an unlawful order.
Correct.
But, so then I was like, man. So then, okay, I'll just, because they keep sending us this email, task force, the COVID task force out of Florida, which was made up of different INS personnel. And they were sending these emails every day, until the day came that I actually got reprimanded.
At the time you got reprimanded, had already a lot of other people taken the shot?
Yeah, a lot of people, some were like, it's not going to do nothing to you, don't matter. And then there was the group that were like, I don't want to lose my job, I don't want to get it, but, I got my kids and this and that. And then you got the ones that put in for exemptions, religious and medical.
Right.
But I was like, I'm not going to say if they were honest about their religious views, and that's what caused them not to get the vaccine. But I'm not going to play with God because I take God serious.
Correct.
So I'm not going to, because I could have did that because I knew it was a game.
Right.
You put in for that, okay, they don't have to deal with you for a while. You're waiting on your exemption.
Right.
And then everybody's covered. I threw a curveball. I think I was the only one that I know of. I don't know if the whole, but at least there in this office, San Diego, that just didn't want to get it. And
dude, I commend you for that, dude.
And then I even did everything they asked for, because you have to put your status, what's going on. Did you get the shot? They have the special website you log into and you input your status or what's going on. I did all that until the day came, well, I'm not going to get the vaccine. This is the part I can't do. So then I didn't do it. And then, they get you for the typical...
insubordination.
Yeah, well, not insubordination, failure to follow through. I don't know, something. And then, so I got reprimanded. And so I got reprimanded. And then, so after that, I was already like, as a matter of fact, I was so stressed out. I was getting like shock. I never found out what that was. I would get like my eyeball and it would throw like a shock all the way to the back of my head.
Yeah. And
my eyeball will go like this and then like a shock all the way back. To this day, I Google it. I don't know if it was some kind of stroke. Something was going on. And that's when I said, you know what? I got to leave. I can't. Even when I wrote the email, I wrote, you know what? Due to my mental health and this and that. And so I wrote a pretty distant email, which now would probably help to show that I had to leave. Because of the
shot.
It's called constructive discharge. When you feel you had no choice.
Right.
And you left. So that's why it's still, I mean, if I could get it going to the federal court, that part's going to be covered where it shows that, because I tried to, I ain't got no choice. It's affecting my mental health.
Right.
And then I was like, I don't want to. And then eventually I just, you know what? I got to leave. Put in my, within 2-3 weeks, filled everything out. And then I was out.
Retired?
Yeah. Well, I claimed my retirement because at that time I was messed up too. I couldn't go out and just get a job.
Right.
I was all stressed out.
And that was 2 years ago?
Yeah, in February 22.
February 2022? And how have you been since then? Did it feel good to be?
The first year, I was just in I think my kid is watching this. I hate this, but because my kid lives with me still. So for a year straight, I was in my bed, just laying in my bed, watching YouTube about the vaccines, about the current events, about the riots, about I'm watching all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm just laying in bed all day. I go to the gym, I feel good, come back, just laying there. And then I did that for like a year straight. And then after that, I still, if I get motivated to do something, I'm going to do this today. And then my body just shuts down. I get motivated. That's why I think my adrenaline and stuff, whatever they call it, I think I got to a point where I forgot what they call it. It gets burned out.
Yeah.
Because you were in a fight for too long.
Yeah.
And I think, but I mentioned it to the doctors. They don't pay me no mind because they see my blood work's good. They see I'm in shape, so they don't really pay me no mind.
That's all doctors.
So then after I'm like, you know what, forget that. I don't trust anything. I don't trust the medical. So I'm just gonna, maybe my body just needs recovery. Maybe it went through so much stress, it just needs recovery. But and now I feel like a little like I could now start. I'm starting to like.
You feel better now?
Yeah, like I could. You know what? Okay, now I just got to start doing these things that I'm being like kind of pushed like internally to or at least tell my story of.
No, bro, I commend you for coming on the show, dude. I thank you. Like I know it was tough for you to do it, but I told you the story was gonna be amazing, dude.
Yeah.
So how do you feel after talking about it?
You know, it feels good, even though some of it, because it brings back, because you still get angry a lot of the. That's the thing. Like, if I was to do things over, maybe I wouldn't just hold things in. I would deal with them and not just, you know what. And I think that's the thing that kind of messed me up a little bit.
And see, I told you were here for a reason, man, because your story is going to actually help individuals that are experiencing the same thing right now, man. They're going to have some choices to make.
Yeah, and just anybody's interested in to go into like the federal law enforcement stuff, like just know if you go in it's just a job and to make money, and for all that you're gonna do good. But if you go in there because of national security, because of the Constitution, the country, you're gonna be disappointed and then you're gonna be miserable. So that's
cool. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show, dude. Man, we're definitely gonna keep in touch, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you. There you guys have it, folks, man. I told you it was going to be a banger. If you like what you saw, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Love you guys. Keep pushing forward.
Unhinged mind, Hector's legend engraved. Living life raw, never been tamed. From the hood to the pen, truth and tales pen. Hector Bravo unhinged, story never ends.